Good morning, everyone. Oh, I am like so pumped this morning. But I want to everyone right now focus on the screen. Today is September 11th, and we're going to start the show off with first of all remembering. I don't think any of us could ever forget. But we're going to start the show off. I want everybody in the chat, once I take this picture off the screen, I want to see in the chat, where were you and what do you remember? I love doing this because some of you are going to say you were not born. And it cracks me up because September 11th seems so fresh to myself. So we want to take a moment to remember everybody in New York. I always say New York was never the same for myself. So I know it's not the same for the people who live in the city of New York. That's why I chose the New York Giants remembrance photo. As a kid growing up in Maryland, you only went to New York as a child, really, unless your parents was in fashion, to go to see the Twin Towers. That was a big part of going to New York and going to the park, and going to Central Park. Going to I think we went to New York one time after that to visit the, I don't want to call it ruins, the remembrance of the Twin Towers at that particular time where it was still a hole in the ground. And New York has never been the same for me. I can't tell you the last time that I visited, except for that time, except for passing through. I think when we were going to Newark, we stopped there just briefly to get ice cream. I wanted some New York Ben and Jerry's or something. But other than that, have not been in the city of New York since, because for me, September 11th changed what New York was for me as a girl growing up in Maryland. So, with that said, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Dre.
Good
I would
morning.
like to bring to attention on the screen that Dre had a football day yesterday, like most of you annoying people who watch football all day. I love football. I can't watch it all day though. It has to be very specific teams. But he's on time. Before, he used to have very bad hangovers, and he would not be here on Monday morning on time. So I am impressed. Um, Let me get back down into the chat. My Lindsay Pool was just thinking about how much I missed you the other day. Actually, we need to be better at jumping on and listening to your lives. I understand, like, everybody be busy, and like I always tell people, it's a lot of lives. I don't get a chance to get on everybody's and see everybody's. I watch a lot of them on playbacks as well, so I get it. Sometimes you got other things going on, but it's great to see you when you here. Definitely one of my favorite females in the happy. Lindsay and Tommy. You survived Jeremy's auction last night too. I was up way too late, but I got a good one out of it. I didn't know Jeremy had an auction. I watched the replay of some of Sal Gomez's auctions. Which, speaking of, guys, again, I don't know Sal myself personally, but any man who gives a kidney to his child, who's a good father, who's run marathons and almost lose their lives doing it, I'm going to always advocate for. They raised almost $38K, and there's going to be a part 2 for that particular auction. And all proceeds is going directly to Sal Gomez's family. Let me just clarify some things. In time of tragedy, especially in a time of tragedy like this, even if you have health insurance, your health insurance only goes so far with you. And then you still have a family who is used to you going to work every day, or however you was bringing in income, bringing it in. I couldn't imagine being in his wife's position right now. I can tell you that he is blessed to have a community who backed him to raise a GoFundMe that hit his goal like in day 2, I think it was. if not day one. Um, and to see some of the animals that went into these auctions. So you had to have these elite breeders involved as well. I mean, involved as well to make it so successful. And more importantly, not more importantly, as importantly, I want to give a shout out to Jessica, and I want to give a shout out to oh my God, he want to kill me. This head of rain. It's gonna come. It's gonna come. But I want a small town exotic. Shane, golly, wow, Shane, sorry. Shane at Small Town Exotics, because they went on for over 4 hours during the auction. And if you guys ever did an auction, you know that it takes a lot. And they did an amazing job. So shout out to them. And I hope everything that Sal and his family needs get resolved through these. I'm sure it's going to be continuous efforts to raise funds. So yeah. Good morning, Joey D. Joey D, how was Miami's show? The setup that you had was beautiful with Villarino. It was a lot of space. So that's always the one thing I like to see is when there's a lot of space. Stan said lived in New York at the time, September 11th. Wow, I couldn't even imagine. So where I was on September 11th, so I was working at a company. This is the funny, it is no coincidence. The company that I was the vice president for was called U.S. Capital Associates with an O. I'm sorry, with an A, not an O. U.S. Capital Associates, but it was in Wheaton, Maryland. And Wheaton, Maryland sits right in the heart of like Silver Spring. So the Silver Spring is Wheaton, and then you have your other surrounding counties and everything. But DC isn't far away from there. So I was actually pulling into the parking lot, and I used to listen to Nelly every morning before I would go into my office. And the girls could see when I would pull up. So I could see, and at that time, my sister was working there. My cousin was working there. I had hired them, they were working with us. And I can see people waving at me at the window. It was eerily weird as I was sitting in the parking lot, but the radio station was on. It was when the radio station just went dead all of a sudden that something clicked to me at one time that something major was wrong. And then when the radio station came back in, the girl name was Olivia Fox at that time at the DC station, 93.9. And she said, "Oh my God." And they used to play all this her and Russell Park used to play a lot. She said, "Oh my God, a plane has hit the Twin Towers." And I thought it was a joke, but I could see everybody waving at me at the window. So I got out, get in, and everybody in the office looks just crazy. Like, oh my God, you can't believe what's happening. So we turned to hit the TV on, and I'm watching. Because Wheaton was an hour away from where I live. So I used to have like a travel of an hour to get to my actual office. So I didn't know exactly what it was, and I thought that they were making a joke, but when I got in the office, it was clear that something was happening that day. My kids were in daycare. Fortunately, I had someone to be able to go pick them up right away. I remember my boss at that time, his friends, most of his friends, because we traded a lot, worked for Morgan Stanley, and his family was traveling back to New York because that's where he was born and raised. So you couldn't find his parents for a couple hours because no one was really in tune what was going on. And the airlines did not have all the information that they needed for people. And of course, planes were being grounded, all that kind of stuff. I can remember the moment we realized that my boss lost a lot of friends that day. And we all wanted to leave the office, but we were all nervous because we didn't know what was happening. So when it hit the Pentagon, now we could see the smoke. You can see the smoke from my office at that particular point. And all we could think of was, do they know the difference between TOL and TAL? Because we were in a high-rise building. And we all decided to leave at that particular time. And I remember driving back up north, and there was no planes in the sky. The sky was really, really clear. You can see the smoke from the Pentagon until you got to a certain part of the Beltway. as I say this, show, I can still remember how my stomach felt. Because for me as an adult, this is the first real terror like that. It was terrorist things that happened, like in Iran and things like. But this was happening in the United States, and it was happening in New York City. And I just remember, oh my God, are we all about to die? So I want to say it was also the first time, at that time, I was fully hijabbed. I was full Muslim. I was fully hijabbed. And I remember my wali calling saying to uncuff, you're not safe. And I never covered, that was the day I stopped covering. After September 11th, I never covered again. And I remember at that particular time having a conversation with others. It was the first time that I ever saw people, regardless of race, creed, and religion, come together as Americans and realize that we all are the same daggone people at that particular time. So it was just an amazing day. I will never forget. The families who were lost, we will never forget them. And I hope that you all say a solid prayer for the people who lost their lives, because I don't think there's anybody who, well, especially up on North, that wasn't impacted one way or the other, who didn't know somebody, who knows somebody, or knew somebody directly who was impacted by September. Let's see. I'm from Queens. Oh, I didn't know that, Joey D. I'm from Queens, and my dad made out of one of the buildings. Oh my God. Very thankful he's still here. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Wow. Yeah. Joey, how often you just went back home? I remember that, right? You did go to New York. Yeah, it's hard for me to go back there. You know, like I said, I was never a resident of the city, but as living in Baltimore, you went to New York a lot for the Twin Towers. You went there for the Statue of Liberty. You went there for Central Park. You went there for some nice parties that lasted all night long. But, you know, it's different now after that tragedy, for me anyway. The memory is definitely different without the Twin Towers. And of course, they can't be replaced from what they were originally, although there's skylines and things like that imitate them. He said, I was stuck on UGA campus, locked down by the police, fire, death. We were all on the construction site, piled around the radio, listening to hell unfold. And that's exactly what it was. Hell unfolding on Earth. Was getting ready for school in California. My mom watches the news every morning, so I watched the second tower go down live and remember my mom crying so hard. That, Lindsay, and I remember the moment I saw people jumping out the 80th floor. And I remember saying, I can't imagine being in a place that the only choice is death. Can't stay here because I'm going to die, but I'd rather die quicker by jumping out this window. Those images to me, probably the images other than people actually running out full of soot, that most people remember the most. Because I can remember us grown adults, we looking at each other crying like they're jumping out the window. It was definitely the most impactful thing. We talk about how COVID shut the world down. That was an experience, but nothing like how September 11th was for me. Dre, where were you? Not born?
I was actually in 4th grade.
Were you watching TV, or because we used to have TV in school?
Yeah, I honestly felt like it was kind of traumatizing because in 4th grade I couldn't really fathom the severity of the situation. But they pulled all of us into a room and turned the TV on and had us watch it, and I was just like, why are we watching this right now? It wasn't until, I got into like middle school, because by then it's a part of history that, we actually got to dive into it and learn about it. But, in 4th grade, we were just put in front of a TV. I remember all of the teachers were crying. The only thing that I do remember was one of my friend's dad lived in New York, and he was actually one of the firefighters actually at 9/11. So I remember she got pulled out of school because they didn't know if anything happened to her dad, but that was pretty much it.
So what I can relate to, which you, well, not necessarily, because I think in fourth grade, see, growing up in Baltimore, we went to a lot of schools that history was a big part of. Like I went to elementary school was Carter G. Woodson. So Carter G. Woodson, as you know, Carter G. You know, he's a part of history. So for us, I can remember watching the day that the Challenger exploded, and I think I was like in my earlier grades then. I knew that everybody on there died because the Challenger exploded. So I could relate to that. And a teacher was on there. That's why we were watching it in the first place. So as we were watching this, we as children saw it happen. And I can remember kids thinking, laughing, like David K saw it, he's watching. David was laughing, thinking that it was a joke, like this was staged. But for me, I knew that everybody was gone. It's a big part of having a fear of flying is a big part of studying astronomy because you have a fear of it. You know what I mean? So I knew they were gone. September 11th, because I had children in daycare at that time, I was away from them. It was a whole lot more impactful to me as an adult. So I can definitely relate that, you know, although that was tragedy watching the Challenger blow up, September 11th was more real to me because I didn't just have to worry about myself. I had to worry about the kids as well. Didn't know what was going on in the country. Did not know how evil these terrorists were at that particular point. So, bro. So yeah. Just don't know. So yeah, so that we want to also make sure that we remember to acknowledge today, Brian. Today I decided to just read this, and this is Oh Lord, we ask for our boundless confidence and trust in your divine mercy and the courage to accept the crosses and sufferings which bring immense goodness to our souls and that of our church. Help us to love you with a pure and contrite heart and to be humble ourselves beneath your cross as we climb the mountain of holiness, carrying our cross that leads to heavenly glory. May we receive you with great faith and love in the Holy Communion and allow you to act in us as you desire, or your greater glory. Oh, Jesus, most adorable heart and eternal fountain of divine love, may our prayer find favor before the divine majesty of your heavenly Father. Amen. So just keep writing your prayers. He's still fighting, still looking good, still coming to work. That's a blessing. For sure, a blessing. Again, that's a disease that's not easy to fight. So it's great to see that you is a soldier going through it. Amen. Lindsay said, Dawn, I'm super glad I jumped in there. I feel like I'm made out like a bandit. Hey, Carriage J, good morning. Joey D said, Miami was good. No sales for me, but good networking and has some interest so people may come back. So that's what I love about the shows is the network. And just we were just saying it yesterday because our sales always come in the last hour. Like people will come back and forth to the table like 4 or 5 times. But they always come in the last hour. So for me, I go in with that mindset, Joey D, the exposure, the contacts that you make, the direct contacts, your ability to educate them. I shout out to Alana. I met a little girl bought a ball python, which is the first ball python I sold from me at a show yesterday. And I was talking to her father, you know, about allowing her to continue to be educated because she bought a male because she has a female and she fireflied and she definitely decided that she might pair if, you know, her parents allow her to breed later. And we was having a conversation about the difference of had our parents allowed us to breed in the 90s and the people who did not. Just like where they are compared, you know, a Justin and a Ozzy who was breeding at a, you know, not child, but younger ages. Well, Justin he was. And for this little girl who is 13 years old, ready to go in and just start educating herself about ball pythons and her dad being supportive for her to do it. So that was good. And we didn't even know that was going to be a sale. We thought the little girl was just coming because we had a snake that was similar to the one that she had at home. And we just ended up having a regular conversation with her dad, and he just pulled out his wallet and just, hey, I want this one right here. So I always tell people the shows are fun from an aspect of educating. If you like to educate, and if it's not all about the money, then you will definitely love it. But it's definitely a plus to help continue to grow your wonderful brand. And Joey D, I love the colors. And it's, in fact, your colors, it was a breeder from Baltimore yesterday. He had black and red. So y'all know I do like the black beans and the white beans for my retakes. And I'll put them in the bottom of the enclosure. I got that from somebody in Timmy. But he had the black and red bees. Oh, it was fire. It was so great with his whole display. I could see everything from where I lived at in Jersey on 9/11. Yeah, so that's a perfect example. That's insane. And that was kind of like when I was saying, Keys, we could see the Pentagon. So to be able to see it really, like the smoke from the Pentagon, even to this day, right past the Pentagon, is weird, because you can see it's a big part of that building that's brand new, and you can see it clearly. So you can't ever forget where that plane actually hit. So absolutely. So the show this weekend was really nice. I shared on my IG a really cool hairstyle one of the kids had that he just was tickled to death. Everybody, he modeled for everybody. His parents was okay, everybody taking pictures and sharing it on their social media. So when I had shared it on my social media and people started commenting, I was letting him see, and he was just so excited. He kept doing like this. It was so fun. But he was going to a birthday party, so I knew he would be the hit of the birthday party. I forgot you're in Alexandria. Yes, I am literally right in Fort Washington, which, Fort Washington is the fort where before they actually went to Fort McHenry and finalized the war. Fort Washington was the last fort where the battle was really won. And then they went and he wrote the Star Spangled Banner in Baltimore. If you want to. So if you ever come visit me or visit Fort Washington, you have to go to Fort Washington National Park. It's one of the only parks in Maryland that is original park. There is original platoon. It's original buildings, prisons. Literally, like the guerrilla unit, how they move from the water through what you call them things, the little hut things. Well, they call platoons. I think they call platoons, but like the underground things that look like the little bushes is there, but it's really men. Those are still there, so we can't walk in certain parts because you will fall down into the ground. But that's the way that they actually moved to get back and forth through the water and get back and forth to their prisons and stuff like that. It's crazy. It's where you see me a lot, either fishing or just sitting by the water. It's one of my favorite places here, to be honest. It has a lot of natural preserve area there where they protect the birds here. Just a nice place. And for my Hispanic families, Latina families, they show how you're supposed to appreciate the natural waters here. So on Saturdays and Sundays or a holiday, you'll see them out there with their grills and their kids and everything like that at the site. So enjoy it. And I get to enjoy it with them. So very, very cool. I remember the days DC Cycle was running around the city. I was staying uptown, not a good day either. Yes, I was still working in Wheaton. And you remember, I think it was the second shooting maybe happened right there at the shopping center where I was. We had to leave work, and my boss, we would go in huddles. They would say they was going to get us, they were going to get money, because at that time, they say by the time you hear the sound, only if you hear the shot, somebody is already hit. So we would figure we would move together. And if some, better one than a whole bunch of us getting hit. And we did that until they found them. That was a crazy time. Definitely a crazy time. I only moved to Florida 2 years ago. I go back and forth to see my girlfriend. Got you. Got you. So yeah, so we're going to move on towards our topic. This is Dre's Day. It's wild caught versus captive, and just some of the differences. Like one of the things, especially when you do educational, people expect a captive animal to act how, well, when I saw the snake in the woods or whatever, so we often have to explain the difference to people of the behaviors of why snakes in the wild act the way that they act, and how captive animals are just used to humans, so they act differently when they approach humans. So, and then some of the things, Dre, and you can just go, I wanted to point out was just some of the pictures. So, one of the things I think, like when you see an animal that looks like that in the wild, that is a snake covered in ticks. And I bring this one up. I don't know if y'all remember when me and Sean was on together. He talked about being the person who worked in the pet store who had to remove the ticks before they sold them back in the day, because this is how a lot of the snakes we got back in the day, they came and they would have to be deticked. I remember buying my very first ball python, and you had to leave it overnight so it can be deticked. But this is also a ball python in the wild, which looks just like, ball pythons that we keep. But you see that in the wild, it's down low. It's a beautiful snake in the wild, but this one is not covered in a lot of ticks. And this, of course, is a reticulated python. I bring this one up, although it's hard for me to look at a deceased reticulated python. I bring this one up because a lot of times people will make the comment about our animals being released to the wild. If I release any of these animals in here into the wild, most likely this is what's going to happen, because they are not, even animals in the wild, they don't survive long, guys. It's one of the beautiful things about captive breeding is that we get to give these, if you take care of them, these animals a better life than they may have in the wild, because a lot of people poach them. Other animals are predatory against them. So in those particular cases, these animals won't live as long. And as you can see, this reticulated python is not 25 feet long and 300 pounds like a lot of people think that wild reticulated pythons are. And this is one just kind of hovering around the water. If you keep a captivated reticulated python, for example, this is a beautiful retic, by the way. Normal retics to me are the most beautiful. You would see that they hovering around the water. This one is a little in the defensive mood right now. My retics, the reason why you see me keep big bowls in a lot of ones, unless they abuse them, because I got some who would just keep dumping them over, I'll remove them and let them soak differently. Retics do like water, especially around shed time. They like to soak, and you may get a retic that requires themselves to hydrate that way. So I always suggest that you always start off with some type of 2 water sources in their enclosures, one for drinking. They're smart enough to know I drink out of this one, and this one I'm going to poop and pee in. Mines are anyway. If you raise them that way. And then as they get older, you might have to, bump up the size of it, because they'll insert their whole bodies in it. But they do like to be around water. And this is a wild berm. And as you can see, looks very typical to any other berm that we would keep. But, I'm sure it has the risk of different diseases and viruses. So shoot, Dre.
Yeah, I wanted to focus more so on, I go on TikTok Live. You always got those people that hop in there that aren't as well versed or educated on reptiles. They think it's simple as getting the snake, putting them in an enclosure, and then just throwing rats in there every so often to keep them going. And their excuse is, well, this is what they would do in the wild. This is what they would do in the wild. So I like to try to explain to people, we're not keeping them in the wild. So it's a lot different. And I think a lot of people forget what reptile keeping actually is, or keeping any animal that has been either domesticated or has been in, human care for a while. The whole point of keeping in captivity is to remove obstacles that animal would deal with in the wild. And I think people forget that. So when I explain to people why I don't feed live, that's one of the main reasons. Oh, well, they will eat that in the wild. Okay. But what we don't talk about in the wild is how many snakes actually succumb to injuries of trying to eat an animal that they should not be eating, or that eat an animal that fights back. Yes, they may kill the animal and they may eat it, but a couple weeks, a couple months down the line, those injuries will, then take over and then they die. Well, we don't talk about that. So the funny thing is, when you asked me about this topic, what? We came up with this what, Friday? Thursday, Friday?
It might have been, yeah, it might have been Thursday. I think I was a little earlier.
So somebody hopped in my live yesterday and was like, my snake got bit. What do I do? And I was just like, by what? Like, this particular
Right.
person was somebody that I remember messaging me on TikTok and asking. They asked me why they should switch over to frozen, and I told them, and they said they were going to stick to live. And then 2 weeks later, now you're in my live asking what you should be doing because your snake got bit, and it was a ball python. Um, so it's unfortunate because it's at the snake's expense, but it made me laugh because I tell people all the time, it's gonna happen eventually. Especially if you I don't have anything against anybody that feeds frozen. My problem is there's not enough education about how to do it properly, and not enough people know how to do it. So they'll just throw the rat in there and walk away, or they'll throw the rat in there and think like, okay, cool, my snake got it and it coiled it, I'm good. No, because I don't know about y'all, but my snakes don't always bite the rat on the head, and I feed frozen thawed, so the teeth are always exposed. So dropping a rat in there and then just walking away, and the tighter that snake coils, that rat is eventually gonna get close enough to bite onto something. And I don't know why some people don't understand that when you put an animal, when you put any living creature in a life or death situation, it enacts the fight or flight response. I don't know why a lot of people don't think these rats and animals aren't gonna fight back. They know they're probably gonna lose, but they're still gonna put up a good fight. So there's a lot of things that we should be taking, a lot of issues that we should be taking away from the snakes as we keep them captive. In the wild, snakes don't know when their next meal is coming, which is why we get them on a schedule. We can then look at their behavior and tell when they're ready to eat because they know it's around that feeding time. Um, so I just hate when people assume that just because an animal experiences or does something in the wild that we have to replicate it in captivity, and that's not the case. It's not the
Well,
case.
I mean, I always relate to the person who went to prison at a young age, or the person who was born in prison. You know, if you never learned how to live outside of a prison, or even someone who goes in for 30 years and they come out, like the world is a shock to them. They don't know how
Hmm.
to function. They don't know how to operate. I mean, it's funny. I was watching Chris video where I guess Chris, and y'all know I'm not a big fan of dogs and snakes being together. Y'all know that is not a thing for me. You never will see my animals that way. But Chris posted a picture of Nikita with his huskies. Now, I can tell you that the retakes I had that was from Jim Jolly, they were used to dogs because Jim has a big bulldog that's always around, and that they was raised together. The event of you bringing an animal who's not used to dogs or vice versa could be disastrous. However, his point was he trained dogs. So I guess they were saying you can train a dog, but you can't train a snake. And then my thought process is that I'm more concerned about the dog being trained because you have better chance of, in that case, of the snake being able to grab the snake than those two dogs, or grabbing them from the dog. So the dogs are trained, it's less of a risk. But the person had a valid point and he was explaining it. What I don't get is that when you educate someone and they want to just continue to go back and forth. So at that particular point, you didn't come here for education, or you didn't come here to ask your question to get a reasoned and valid response. You came here to argue. And that's when, as I told Morgan, block them. Like, and when you see at that particular point that the person has crossed, like, because there are people who really, oh wow, like impressive, you know. And if I didn't know that Chris actually was a dog trainer, you know me, Dre, I would have cringed, you know, like. But clearly, this man loves his animals. He knows what he can do with them, what he can't do with them. And even if I agree or disagree, I'm not going to sit there and come on a post to argue with them. So something someone said earlier, you can educate people and people can receive knowledge without being combative towards each other.
Definitely. But that opens up a whole new topic. We all know the community that we're in. There's way too many egos in the reptile community.
That change? Like, I mean, I guess yeah, we do know that. But my thing is that, like, at this particular point, when do you realize the egos don't matter? Because the egos don't feed your animals. The egos don't raise your animals healthy. What does is us coming collaterally. Because I can tell you, I changed my mindset from 30 years ago. Like for me, growing up, the red lights were legit. Like you wasn't keeping your animals right if you didn't have a red light. But John Jones, God Lord rest his soul, you know, he is the one who had, you know, to think about those lights differently. And I can tell you right now, there are some lizards who still love those red lights. But I do believe that your snakes need light. I do believe that they need a day in a life cycle. So LED lights work better for me for that. But I'm not saying if someone turn on red lights, their animal's not fine either. You know, that's totally up to your individual. Do your animal eat? Do it digest its food? Does it seem like it's having a good temperament and it's not stressed and it's not frustrated? I don't care what you do. And that's the thing. Now, when I sell your animal, I will tell you how my animals kept. I will tell you how they kept even down to temperature, because I do think that makes a difference too, and how they're going to adjust to you if you don't keep the temps the exact same way. That could be an adjustment. It may not be. You might make some adjustments in that thing, like, oh, cool, I'm still good. Who knows? Like the person has to react individually to their snake. Right? I was only trying to educate those videos. That's what you came to do, Chris. Ken, it's not a good feeling to have to hold a rat's head down so it won't bite, but it's what you have to do to protect the animals. But see, I think what Dre is saying, and for me, any animal in here, the moment it takes frozen thaw, it never sees live again. Like, it's just no point for me to even risk the snake, you know, to that. And I have, and I shared before, years ago, seen a lot, I call it a mouse from the hood, bite the snake, and the snake really, really be impacted by it. So you wouldn't think it was possible because it's a snake in a rat. But once you see it, like, I just would not risk it. Now, even with my reticulated pythons, there are some who's never seen a live animal, like never, because a lot of retics, even as babies, will take frozen thaw first. So it all depends on the snake. If once they hit frozen thaw, though, that's it. The only time they will ever see live is I'm using them as a garbage disposal for something else down the road, which doesn't happen too often because I got the boas for that.
Yeah, like I said,
you believe your boas ain't missing. So if you go,
like I said, I'm not against people who feed live. I just think that there's more people doing it incorrectly than there are people doing it properly. So I'm not gonna sit here and say I've never fed live to my snakes, because I have multiple of my snakes have come to me only eating live. So I had to do it to wean them on the frozen. But like I said, most people just do it improperly. Right, and then a lot of these people are buying snakes that get massive and they just think, oh, I'm just going to throw something in there. And then these are the type of people that, you know, record it and laugh at that other animal's expense. And like they're celebrating the death of another animal. So, of course, that's going to be highlighted among any of the education we can put out there, because as much as people don't like snakes, they're going to go watch something like that because they find it interesting. That's why we have so much misinformation out there. That's why we have a lot of these big name celebrities in the reptile world that are on places like BuzzFeed, the Shade Room, the Dodo, all of that, because they are what's wrong with the reptile community. It's easy for them. They have these massive followings, and it's easy for them to spread the wrong narrative or to pass down the incorrect knowledge because it looks cool. And that's unfortunate.
And I think too, like with that being said, I think that I like to see videos where people, like you said, even if you're feeding live, you're educating people on that, because I think that the first thing the younger person is going to do is feed live, and they won't know what to look for. In fact, in a younger person mind, they wouldn't even think that a snake could kill a rat can kill a snake. Because that's just in the younger kids' mind. Because on in the movie Anaconda, they eat whole people. So how in the world can a little mouse or a little snake? A little mouse kill a big snake. Even with your bigger snakes, like I have some that are savage, and I have some who eat bougie as I don't know what. So they eat frozen thought, and it's the one that kind of just, like want to sniff around the food first and all that kind of stuff. Those feeding them live, like in between those frozen thought cycles, is dangerous, because sometimes it takes them a minute to realize, oh, this thing is live. Then I have other ones, like I always make the joke with T'Challa. She kills the frozen thought. She literally squeezes the water for 20 minutes out of this daggone rabbit like it is alive. So she'll be fine. I can I can make her a live disposal. She'll get that thing as soon as it come in. But I have others who might sit there and be like, oh, what are we doing? Like, what are you? And by that time, those big old rats at that particular point are very smart too. Because rats are smart as crap. I noticed that the moment when I realized, just like after I clean their enclosures, and you can just put the tub there, and they'll march like little Indians and back into their tubs. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like, they're smart as well. So we have to really consider that when we're putting these animals together. And to what you're saying, in the wild, the attack is different than some of that. So if you don't have a retic, for example, that has a platform, for example,
Right.
and let's say naturally, if you think in the wild, a lot of times they will actually come from the top and pull up, just like big snakes hunt from the top too, especially in the jungles, because they know they go down on the ground, they become prey instantly from monkeys and tigers and all the other stuff that's out there that's challenging to them. So you have to keep that in mind as well. How do your animal attack? Like if I have an animal that seems like they have to raise up to grab live, then they should have a platform in there, because you want to make it easier for them. But like with the boas, I would not have a concern. Although my boas eat frozen thought too, but if I gave them alive, it's hitting. It's no hesitation. I don't have one boa who, in fact, I think they know I'm coming. Like, yeah, it's coming through the door, but shoot. I am more quick to drop food and close my boa's enclosure than my retics. My retics do not, and I'll say it over and over again. Your boas are hitters. It's something about the power of their hits.
Every time.
Like they don't target. I don't know if their strike is
every time.
They on point. And in the way they grab, it's no wiggling. Ain't no wiggling out of this. Like pull little right.
It's very intentional. Like they strike that rat, like that rat owed them some money, and they like, all right, I'm gonna handle this.
Yeah. So it's like you have to pay that attention as well. And then I was saying, like something yesterday, no one state and I have the same eating habits. You have some who have some of the same eating habits, but I can guarantee you none of them would survive in the wild. They're spoiled. They are very shoot, I protect them from knocking stuff on them. So they wouldn't even know what it's like for a tree branch, randomly in the jungle to hit them. I don't know if their bodies would know how to react to that, right? I protect them from everything. But on the flip side of it, it's the same thing when we bring in wild animals into captive. We have to be patient with them. I think a lot of people, when they buy wild caught animals, specifically like the green trees and stuff like that, like you have to understand that you're now bringing them into a captive environment. And so you have to kind of reverse the thinking as how, they'll survive in captivity. Because you can also take a wild caught animal, bring them in captivity and kill them. Because just like with us, how some people say, I can live here in New York or Buffalo and it's cold as crap, but if you put me here in this state, I won't survive. Well, we get conditioned to our surroundings. And so therefore, when you adjust our surroundings, like some people, if you move a lot of old people from the south up to the north, they develop instantly respiratory problems. And that's just because the air is much purer in the south. And that's just a fact. And then you bring them into the congestion of the major city, it's not good. Older people lungs, because for so long they breathe in a certain level of pure air or cleaner air. Let's say that. Yeah, my boys play simple games sometimes. When I feed them, I still jump. I get out the way, right? Like, he got my both by. Do you still want him? Try to give it away. Yeah, so that was the topic. But before I leave, I'm gonna start some shenanigans today, and I'm glad you're here because this is. I kind of touched on this topic a couple of weeks ago, but I'm just going to bring up the picture first, and because some of y'all might be into, some of y'all may not, but I'm just going to go into what I want to say using this. I'm gonna start here though. Everybody know who that is? Do you know who it is, Trey? Because if you don't know, Trey, I'm gonna feel it.
Yes, I know who it is. I wish I didn't know who it is.
So, for those of you who don't know, this is Blueface and Krishan, right? And I bring this up because I made a comment a couple of weeks ago on this very podcast about picking and choosing the people you're going to spend your life with. So this was Krishan when she left Baltimore. She came to California before Blueface. I'm not blaming Blueface for her looking different, although she's looking much better now as a mom. And here's their beautiful baby born into the chaos of the parenting. So I wanted to leave with this note. Often I hear people saying this: I'm not getting married, but you'll have a baby with someone. Let me be the one to tell y'all, it is much easier to divorce someone than it is to not deal with the person you had the baby with. It is too late after you have the baby to say this person is a bad this, they need child protective services, they need X, they need this, they was that, they're crackhead, they're this. All of that don't matter because that's the person you chose to have the baby with. So at this particular point, for at least 18 years, the two parents got to figure out how you can get along good enough to take. For me, I had two baby daddies, okay? The first one, y'all don't see. The second one, y'all don't see. But it's not because that me and my husband don't deal with them. Michael has a decent dad. My daughter's father, he's uneventful. But it doesn't mean that I don't have, like, y'all don't hear me post nothing negative about him. She has a great relationship with her father. That's all that matters. And because for all those years, even though where he may not have been the ideal dad, her image of him was. And so as an adult, they still have a relationship. I say this to say that as adults, you cannot put your shit on the lives of your children, because what happens is you raise a Krishan who was wanting her father physically there for all her life, and then she gets old, she gets to California, and she wild out. She becomes an alcoholic, changes her whole fitness set because she's yearning for something in somebody because she never had. You know, shout out to Dre, because I tell people and my husband, and I tell any man who's like on their daughters. My dad has been gone since 1992. My dad is who keeps me focused today as an adult. I can hear my dad tell me, don't do this, you should do this, say this, don't put up with that. Oh, hell no. Let that go. Like, my dad still raises me as a grown woman from the grave, y'all. Because the impact of a father to a young woman changes how she sees life forever. Forever. And at the end of the day, your child needs their fathers. You chose them. They need their mothers. You chose them. Y'all need to find out a way. Young people.
Yeah, we had to start early.
Not choosing baby daddies and baby mamas when you don't want a wife or a husband. Because I can tell you right now, that it's easier to divorce than it is to say, I'm not going to deal with the mother of my child or the father of my child.
Thank you, Lindsay. We start early. My daughter is in pre-K, and she got a little friend at school I ain't too fond of. Um, she 3, he 4. Already, that's a red flag.
Yes, right.
So I go to pick her up. This was last Tuesday, and she grabs my hand. She said, "Wait, Daddy, I gotta say bye to my friend." Now it's like 6 other girls in this classroom and 2 boys, and she got this little light skinned little fella with the little curls and everything, and I was like, she's like, "That's my friend Malachi." So I just look at Malachi. He look at me. I'm looking at him like, "All right, better keep your eyes on your own paper, my brother. Don't stick that glue stick too hard.
It's
Start early."
like, and then all of the yelling and the screaming and all of the stuff that the children have to go through because y'all can't get along. I can remember, like, my daughter's dad would come and it would be out the blue, and I would just pack a bag, and my sister-in-law at the time would be like, "You just gonna let it go? That's our father, regardless of what I think of him."
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he wasn't like cranky, nothing, nothing, he wasn't bad. He didn't always make the best decisions for a child, but he was damn sure gonna protect her if something happened. So I wasn't worried about that. But like that bitterness of, oh, he hasn't been here for 5 months, I'm not gonna let you see. No, I didn't have that bitterness. I just didn't. I just don't think that you should have to force a person to take care of their child. And I think that on the flip side of it, though, you should not negate that child from making their own decisions. Because I truly believe that if the person is no good for the child, when the child gets grown, they make that decision for themselves. And I could not say that for my child's father had great qualities outside of being a father.
Listen, Nicole is my witness. This is a situation I'm kind of still currently dealing with. I had to basically learn you cannot let how you feel about your child's other parent dictate how they feel. Me and my daughter's mom do not get along. We're not on good terms. This is a current situation. To be honest with y'all, this is why I had to take a break from social media. It's part of the reason, because it's a lot mentally. So I'm just now getting to the point where I'm just at peace. It is what it is. My daughter, no matter how I feel about my daughter's mom, my daughter loves her mom.
That's right.
My daughter's mom tried to take my daughter away from me. I'm not going to do that because I understand how my daughter feels about her mom. And she'll get to the age of where she understands who's who. I wasn't trying to win anything. I just wanted to do what's best for my daughter. And at the end of the day, nobody and no one and no thing is going to stop me from doing that. I don't care. I don't care what that looks like. But that's factual. So I don't know where I was going with that. But just be at
It was
peace.
more to the point, like you started, the fact that, what's the point of saying anything negative about her mom to her, right?
Oh, yeah.
I can take it all in, right? But
Yeah.
to her. And I mean, even with us, like I shared with you, the stuff that my husband went through. Now I still stay in my position. I don't have to have a relationship with the mother of his child. But he does, and it's going to always be a need to, So I never, like, that's another thing. I'm never of how women will try to come between that. You can't, like. And for me, I remember even saying to her, "You would have been queen if you never tried what you tried. You degraded yourself with me."
Saving my situation. We were, we was engaged, so it definitely the worst part about me was getting to a point where I was over the hurt. I was so focused on what she did to me that I wasn't thinking about everything else. Not to say I wasn't being a good dad. That's never not been an option. However, I had to pull out of my feelings to make sure that I could be 100% for my daughter. So I mean, it's just like at the end of the day, once you get to that point where your peace is all that matters, that's it. That's all. That is it. That's all. Go do you. Do whatever.
Right.
Nothing that's going, basically stop me from doing what I'm supposed to do. And what I find worse about being in this position is I've never had to ask me for anything. You didn't have to call me, hey, she had a Pampers. No, because why? Why is that something you need to ask me for? That it comes with it, So to be in the position that I'm in now, it's like, you know what? Maybe this is what it was supposed to be. It is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that, in general, sometimes you just need to understand that the person isn't for you, but the child is all that matters. And then, like Orlando said, at some point, I think the beauty of it is that the child can grow up and because they process everything, right? Like I don't believe that like you shouldn't let that negative energy come off of you around your children because then in the process of, let's say, if I use Michael for example, if I made Michael think that his father was so horrible to me and he did bad things to me, it would make Michael want to be the protector of his mother as he is and guard himself against his father, who is an amazing father to him. You see what I'm saying? And vice versa. And so I think that what we just my message is that before you say I'm gonna have a baby and I'm gonna lay down with somebody, stop saying I'm not getting married because marriage actually you're better off. Like when you get married first and you have a child, that whole process is different. How you trade, what you got to go through is different when you're married. It's because law comes into play now.
It would have been 10 times worse for me.
But it's not the decision maker. It doesn't. No, it doesn't. The decision maker doesn't. When you're married and there's a separation of a child, the law is definitely the child belongs to no one.
Oh yeah. The
child belongs to no one. You both automatically get 50-50. Unless something wrong with you, you both automatically get 50-50. And the way it should be is that you should have 50-50. Week on for whatever in those particular situations. But people would say, like to me, having a baby with somebody is bigger than marriage.
It's permanent.
No way out.
You can always divorce somebody no matter how long it takes, but having a child, you are tied to that person for life.
Even when that person is grown.
Whether you want to be or not.
If that person dies, right? I think I shared this with y'all being in the funeral home. Him is that parent. The one that you hated or whatever the case may be, if that person did not marry anyone else. So that person that you hated for all these years and you made your child hate, now it's going to be the person who decides with this funeral director how we're going to proceed with the last stages of this person's life. Let's say this person left an insurance policy. And I'm gonna go ahead and bury God for 10,000 because this 40,000 can benefit me because I ain't like it that much anyway. Like we should think about stuff like that when you're setting it up or when you're keeping your child away, and then in a case your child needs an organ, you can't find it.
It's a lot of us that have gone through this situation or have in the situation. Got to find an outlet, find your peace, and keep it.
And number one, fathers as much as mothers, but fathers, I think a lot of times think that you have no rights, and I would tell you that you have plenty of rights. And coming up, like I always use our personal scenario, the judge, after seeing how great of a father my husband was, he saw the world differently for that situation, and the judgment was very, very fair. I think it's horrible when you keep, and I say, I can say this with my daughter. You can't say I'm gonna have one child, two child, three children, and raise them all by myself, and then you need everybody else, the village, to handle. No, not when they got fathers. The village comes after you search the village and there's nobody to help. But when they have fathers, you have to allow them. I mean, don't get me wrong. I didn't need for my child. I said that. I didn't need financial. There are some people like that, but then there's others that you do. So you need to build a relationship and lean on that because two people who don't get along are never going to come together to be able to do anything together. But raising a child, especially today, they need morals, they need principles, they need guidance. And it's not a lot out there. At all. And you're seeing the result on the internet and IG now of fatherless daughters every single day. You see it in, what's her name, Dirty Red, or whatever her name is. You see it in Sukiana. You see it. You see it every single day. Fatherless daughters. Because what your mother will allow you to get along with, your father will check that crap in a heartbeat.
Nicole, you know what my daughter looked like. If you ever, in 15 plus years, see a video of her doing some shit you don't have a problem with, you call me, because you know I'm blowing the whole motherfucking spot up. We're not doing that. I don't care what me and her mom go through. I always told myself, I do not want to have to help my daughter heal from trauma based on some shit that I went through. So therefore, if it was up to me, I don't ever want her to know about the situation. But kids get curious, and I'm sure she's gonna eventually want to know why you and my mom aren't together, or why we're not. That's fine. I don't have a problem explaining it to you when you're old enough to understand. However, you will not have to, and that's why I'm so overprotective. We don't do sleepovers. We're not doing none of that unless it's with my immediate family. I don't care how good of an uncle or an aunt you are to me. That's my child. We're not doing that.
Oh yes. What Orlando just said. You're right. But again, that's why I bring up Blueface, because he's not the best example for his son. You know, Child Texas Services just went in because he just did the whole little butt-naked stripper thing and all that stuff for his son. So yes, it goes both ways. You know, like in that whole, I hate to hear men and women call their little boys niggas. I hate it. Like, yes, they can get older and learn how to use that term appropriately. How, you know, some people think is appropriate. Like, I call you something, you know, sometimes, you know, Trey, you know what I'm saying? Like, they'll get older to know, you know.
Nicole's favorite word to call me is Negro anyway. She old school with it. She put some sting on it. Like last week when I hit her up and told her daughter was cute, she was like, get out my inbox, Negro. She was,
and I thought you was going to say something so serious. He was like, well, can I ask you something? And I'm like, sure.
I said, no disrespect.
Yeah, no disrespect. I'm like, sure. What did your grade say? My daughter is very beautiful, but like I told Trey, she crazy as all outdoors. So
she was like, "You're not ready for that crazy." I was like, "I already know her mom drive me crazy." Man,
we're not gonna have her baby fathers, right? You, we're DJ. When you make her mad, she takes it all down. She gonna make sure your apartment is done, your car is done, you have no windows. She going all out.
Yeah, nah. I'm too peaceful. I'm the quiet, laid back dude. I can't deal with that.
Yes, Dana is something. And as she matures, she, you know, I think just, but as she is now, she's a great mother. Like she's one of the ones. She's a great mother. My grandkids are so smart, but it would take a very strong man to put up with her. It takes a lot for her mother to put up with her.
And that's saying a lot coming from a Gemini, y'all.
Okay, it's a Pisces. It's war. It's war. Like it's war.
Ooh, Pisces.
Unless you know, like so, you know, Pisces sometimes they wake up in a good mood, and you just got to keep them there. But yeah, she definitely. But she's also the benefit of that is she's a survivor. She is my child. If you can put her anywhere in the woods, she's coming out on the other end. Like she's coming out, and she's coming out, and she destroyed everything that came in between. Oh, that bear. Oh, what I did with that bear, you go see that bear. One of my favorite childhood stories, Jada was about 15, and we gonna shut it down. I get a call that my daughter had been arrested, and all I can hear in the background is, "What's that? I don't know what's going on, y'all." This is one of our favorite. I mean, it was a bad situation, but even when I talk about it now, and I can't wait till Jada's daughter is tough like Jada. So I can't wait to share this with her daughter when she get older. So she just couldn't watch the video. So she actually went to, it was a fight on an MTA bus. And Jada's thing was the girls came on the bus. They were trying to bite her. So when the bus driver tapped my daughter from the back, she thought it was one of the girls. So my daughter grabbed the bus driver, flipped her over on her back. She messed her back up really bad. The bus driver was in the hospital. It was a bad situation. But my daughter, she said it. Watch the video. So when the video played, my daughter was absolutely right. She still got time because she blacked out. Because I do that too when I get really, really mad. It was the point where she could have stopped beating the other girl, and she beat her really bad. And it was a point, even as watching it as a mother, all right, that was enough. But she was taken there. And so, yeah, she avoided jail time. She did do something because they wanted me to come get her out of that little group home thing they take you to because it was an MTA police. So this is like federal, like you can't do things to the MTA police apparently. So, but I made her stay there even through Christmas, and she'll talk about that, like call her mother, because your decisions could have been a little differently. Like it wasn't her fight. First of all, you was fighting for somebody else. Wasn't even your fight. But once the fight started, they did. The girls came on the bus. The guys came on the bus. They tried to jump my daughter. She beat the crap out of all of them. No one could believe it. But when they released that MTA video, everything my daughter said was right. And the day that they played that video, all she said, told you. Like she told you in the story. She didn't no apologies, no nothing. She was like, I told you. So, I mean, I think that she is definitely at some point it's going to be an amazing wife, but it's going to take an amazing guy. It's going to take an amazing guy.
You said I'm not amazing?
You would be, see, this is the thing. Let's just keep it funky. She would be someone like Slim to say, bitch crazy, and keep walking. That ain't you. That ain't you. You're going to actually say, bitch crazy. They don't fight and keep dragging on. It's too much. It's too. You would be a great provider. So if she was the person who was, providing me, I would set this thing up. But she was.
They said I'm over here.
I'm gonna keep it real. I'm the first to tell him. Like, it's not saying that, because I believe in the first situation. I really thought that was, going to be good. That was going to be solid. I'm blaming you. That was not your fault. None of that. But Dre, you're not the type that I can see. And I say the same about him. The reason why I'm humble with my husband, if I start cussing my husband out, he will pack all his shit and he be gone. He ain't that man. Like, you're not gonna disrespect him because he don't disrespect me. Like, I don't have a husband who would ever call me a bitch. I don't have a husband who would ever call me any of those bad words that make him slur.
I've only called one woman a bitch, but she deserved it. And she wasn't somebody I knew. To do that with Jada would be something more simple, like, okay, you're the provider, and okay, here's Jada. You done paid rent, you done paid car insurance, you done paid everything, but you didn't get Jada them Balenciagas or that outfit she wanted. Then she just mad at you. That's Jada. She's maturing though. One day she's gonna make a great wife. She's just not there yet, and she damn sure ain't had to put with a Drake. If I'm gonna put with somebody like a Bosa who barely talks, I mean, Bosa, Miss Bosa don't get you. I'm just saying. Like, all I'm saying is Nicole tagged her in something, and I wanted to be nosy, and I was just like, yeah, damn. Just saying, what happened? She's a beautiful girl. So I messaged Nicole like,
she's the one. She's really popular on IG.
I messaged Nicole like, so this topic, cool.
The funny
one more thing. So
Reggie did that last year. Reggie and Kirby. It was like, so you tell us what the door's doing.
She was like, boy, bye. I was like, I love you too, sis.
Oh, that's so funny. But yeah, I did. But Dre, look, to give you an example, Dre done tried my sister, who's old enough to be his mother.
I did not. I just said just
my daughter. Same similar message. In fact, the day that I did the cancer walk and him and Pam, I messaged him. I was like, hey, could you possibly do the show with pink? Sure. See,
I mean, I had to.
he's talking about, hey, Miss Nasty.
Look, I was up here like, you stupid.
She like, such your age. He like, so?
What got to do with me? Like, ask how old she was.
You did. All right, y'all have an amazing Monday.
Yeah, y'all have a good week.
Have a great week. Remember to check out my North Market. Good people only. Yeah. And I'll be talking to you guys soon. Have an amazing day. Drake is a whole fool, right? Amazing day. He done tried everybody except for my mama. I think she was just too old.
It's your sister fine, but your daughter was like,
Talk to y'all later. Bye bye.